Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle and this is Danielle's Books. Thanks for stopping by. This video is going to be my best books of the year. Woo! I just posted a community tab over, I don't know, a couple days ago saying that my best books is going to be a little bit delayed. I don't really have like a top 10. I have a top 5 and then I have some honorable mentions. It was really hard for me to rank books this year. Honestly, I didn't have like the best reading year when it came to finding like new favorites, but I have 10 books I'm going to talk about. Really, the back half of the list, I'm not going to really spend a whole lot of time talking about them. They're just kind of like my honorable mentions, and then I'll talk about the top 5 books in order, and we'll get to the best one. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I would love to have you. Give this video a thumbs up and comment down below what your best book of the year was. And if you read any of these books, share your thoughts with me, even if they differ. We're all readers here and it's okay to have different opinions on books. So, also I'll have all of these books linked down below in the description box. There'll be a bunch of other stuff in the description box too. Instagram, podcast, Storygraph, Goodreads, all that good stuff. I've been very active. That was one of my big goals, was to be very active on social media, and I'm doing a pretty good job, not gonna lie. So check out my Bookstagram and you'll kind of get more in the moment stuff going on. So let's get into my 5 honorable mentions. These are in no particular order, but they're the honorable mentions. So first up, I have Zola by D.E. McCluskey. I got into extreme horror during 2023 mainly, and this was one of my favorite ones I read. I'll actually talk about the 2 that I have in this list. They're both honorable mentions. And Gone to See the Riverman. This one, you're following this guy. His name is Gordon Zola. This is an extreme horror book about cheese. It's very disgusting, but it I don't know, it's kind of fun to read, not gonna lie. And I did a vlog reading, I think 8 different extreme horror books, and this was by far my favorite one that I read in that video. At least I think this is the video I read that in, hopefully. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, this was one of my favorite extreme horror books I read this year. The other one was Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. I do plan to read the sequel to this sometime this year. I think it's called Along the River of Flesh. I'm not totally sure. This one, oh, by the way, if I'm looking over here, I have my computer where I kind of wrote down notes for all these books and everything. But this one, you're following this girl named Lori. She's like pretty much obsessed with this serial killer who's in prison. His name is Edmund Cox, and he gave her an assignment to like go to his cabin in the woods or whatever and retrieve a key that she needs to deliver to the Riverman. And things get out of hand. She brings her sister along with her on the adventure. Big fan of the sister in this book, and Lori is one of the characters I hated the most, but like you're meant to hate her, so I really enjoyed this story. And yeah, honorable mention. Another honorable mention, this book I don't think I talked about at all on YouTube or Goodreads or anything, and that is How Can I Help You by Laura Sims. This is one that I kind of had on my radar because it's set mainly in a library. I work at a library, so I think that's probably why this book worked more for me. It might not work for everybody, but this one, you're following this girl named Margot, or this woman named Margot, and she works at this library. She's very mysterious. She has a past that she kind of ran away from, or she's avoiding because it's a very troubled past, and so she's been working at this library. Someone new starts at the library. Her name is Patricia, and they're both kind of suspicious of each other. Margot thinks that Patricia might be like someone who she used to work for or work with, and then Patricia sees Margot kind of act a little bit suspicious with a patron who died. Margot's very fascinated with death, and you definitely see that in this book. I really enjoyed this one, and I don't know, I think, like I said, the library setting really worked for me, so this is another honorable mention. Another honorable mention is These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. This book I read right away at the beginning of the year in January. This one, you're following Cooper and his daughter Finch. They're kind of living off the grid, and they have been for quite some time. They have this guy Jake, who usually comes and delivers supplies to them on the same day every year, and Jake doesn't show up one year, and so you're kind of figuring out slowly what Copper is kind of like running from, or like keeping like what secrets he's hiding, and also you're seeing their like fights for survival because they didn't get the supplies they needed and all that good stuff. So I really, really enjoyed this one. This is the book I got the closest to crying in. It's very emotional. It's very short, and I really, really, really recommend this one. I had a great time with it, and it stuck with me the whole year. Next up, we have None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I know that this has been a very favorite thriller for a lot of people this year, as it was one of mine. You'll see I have a couple others that are in my top, and this is in my top 5 favorite thrillers of the year very easily. This is kind of like a buzzer beater pick because I read this in December, and this one you are following these 2 women, and one of them, or they're birthday twins, and one of them, why can't I remember her name now all of a sudden? Okay, Josie. Josie goes up to Alex at this dinner. She realizes that it's her birthday twin, and they're like, oh my god. Alex is a podcast host, and Josie kind of pitches herself to be like a subject of Alex, a new podcast for Alex to kind of make about Josie's life. And Alex has kind of been looking for a new podcast to start because she's kind of getting bored with the one that she's been working on, which is interviewing, I think, like powerful women, something like that. And you start to see the relationship between these 2 women develop. Josie's quite a character to read from. I really enjoyed reading both about both of these characters. I really enjoyed both a lot, which kind of helped enjoy the book as a whole. And then this book has a podcast element, and actually has the podcast element within the book. They're also producing a TV show based on these ladies' podcast, and you're kind of seeing the behind the scenes of the show within this book, and I really, really liked that aspect. So honestly, this could have been a top pick if it weren't for these other ones, like at any point. Like, this was a really, really, really good thriller. This is a 5-star thriller, but the other 5 books I had to talk about just kind of worked for me a little bit more, or just, I don't know. But yeah, there you go with None of This Is True. So let's get into top 5 territory. The first one I have up is kind of an interesting pick. Not really, because, we'll just get to it. This is Shockwaves by Matt Kurtz. This is my second read by Matt Kurtz. I read The Rotting Within and really, really enjoyed that one by him. And so I knew that I wanted to pick this one up. This is a creature feature set in the 80s at an amusement park. And that's like kind of the perfect setting for me, to be honest. And you kind of really get those feels. It's completely set at this amusement park. And there's like an impending storm. Our main character, let me figure out his name, Danny. He had just found out that his girlfriend was pregnant, and he didn't take the news like he wished he would have. And so he's like kind of stoked that the park might be able to close because of this storm. And so then he can go patch things up with his girlfriend, Stacy. But the storm does come whilst also across the street from this amusement park, there is like a, what is it? It's just like an empty parking lot. And it basically like implodes, and all of these creepy crawlies come out, and they're all shapes and sizes, all different types. And they basically wreak havoc on this amusement park. So you're kind of watching that all happen, and I had just so much fun reading this book. It was kind of like a right place, right time book, because as much as I liked the horror of this book, I also really enjoyed, you get like a few pages about Danny really trying to like fight for his relationship with Stacy and like wanting to be like a good dad and prove to her that like he will be. But don't get it twisted, this book is very much so horror, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend Shockwaves by Matt Kurtz. All of these are 5 stars if that wasn't obvious. So, number 5. All right, number 4. This is definitely a wild card pick, like for sure. I kind of picked this up on a whim, and also I think it maybe was like the cover. I actually originally got it from the library, and then I asked for a copy for Christmas because I was like, I need to own this book. I really want to reread this book, and I really want to like highlight and maybe even annotate this book. That's not something I usually do, but this book kind of made me want to do that. And that is Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I love this cover so much. So this one, we're following our nameless main character who's kind of grappling with the fact that her dad is in the ICU and her husband has been like really sick, and they're both just like not doing great. And she's also a writer, and so she's kind of wanting to get like a mental getaway, and she goes to California to Death Valley to get her mental getaway, but also to do research for the book that she's trying to write. And so when she gets to the desert, she checks into this Best Western, and one of the like workers of the Best Western kind of recommends this hike for her to go on, and the hike she does go on. And this book has some like magical realism, which is something I'm not usually reading a whole bunch of, but I really, really enjoyed it in this one. She goes on the hike, she stumbles across this cactus, and there's like an opening to the cactus, and she goes into the cactus. And yeah, like I said, there's magical properties within this cactus. She like can talk to inanimate objects. She's getting like visions of her father and husband in the past, like as children, that she can like talk to. And she's just like fighting for her life on this hike. Like it's super, super hot, and she's all by herself, and she keeps getting lost. And yeah, it's her fight for survival, while also you're exploring like a ton of different themes in this book, like death, love, grief. And there was just some beautiful quotes in this book. Like I said, I really want to reread this one, and I just had a really good time with this book. It's nice and short, and I just think that it was really easy to relate to the main character with everything that she's going through, and kind of being like overwhelmed with like the situation and like the cards she's been handed. And so I really, really enjoyed this one. And number 4, Death Valley by Melissa Broder. Number 3. This one I probably don't need to talk about too much, but it's The Shining by Stephen King. This is my 3rd Stephen King book that I've read. I think this was like my 2nd King book I've read 3 King books. I think this was the 2nd King book that I ever read. I knew that I wanted to read The Shining because it's so beloved, and it's my husband's, one of his favorite books. So this one, if you're not familiar, you're following Jack Torrance. He takes a job as the winter caretaker for the Overlook Hotel. His son Danny has a special gift called the Shine, and that was really interesting to kind of like explore within the book and see like what his abilities can do and all of that. I thought the characters were so fleshed out in this book. I think that King, I know he gets like a lot of shit for writing like and overwriting, but I think it really worked in this book. Jack is such a unique character. You can go from hating him to loving him to like everything in between. And it's interesting to see what the setting of this hotel like offers. Like obviously Jack, you're seeing his like descent into madness in this hotel, and the hotel is kind of doing this to him. And so that's kind of interesting to read about. And I think this is another book that I would definitely reread, probably not anytime soon. There are a couple other King books that I want to read, but yeah, I just like loved reading this book a lot. So there you have The Shining by Stephen King. All right, number 2, The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. First thing I want to say is that it is criminal that this book was not rated high enough for it to be in the Goodreads Choice Awards in the mystery thriller category. I thought that this book was fantastic. Obviously, it's number 2 on my list. I just thought that for a debut thriller, this book did things that I haven't read in thrillers. And so for that, kudos. This one, you're following our main girl, Alex, who is a struggling writer and also just had a falling out with her best friend, Ren. They also have a third best friend named Ursula. And they're all kind of obsessed with this author named Rosa Vallow. And Rosa Vallow is hosting a writing retreat at her own estate. And Ursula kind of has an in with Rosa, or like her people, and she kind of like gets Ren and Alex into this retreat without either of them knowing that they're both going to be on this retreat. And as you can imagine, all these girls on a writing retreat together, stuck in this huge house, having to, or like kind of competing for the prize, which I'll get to in a second. Things can kind of go crazy. This book was super wild. The ending was super wild. I just had like the best time. This is a great book to read in the winter. This definitely has the snowy atmosphere to it. And yeah, like I said, they're all competing for this prize, which is like $1 million, a book deal with Rosa, and to like go on tour with her. And so it's a big deal. They have to start a book completely from scratch when they get to the retreat, and they have to write 3,000 words a day, something like that. I think that those are the numbers. And like I said, this book is just crazy, wild, and I just like, I kind of want to reread this one too, not gonna lie. I just had the best time with this one. Maybe it was another one that I like read at the right time or something, because clearly there's a lot of people that it didn't work for, but to me, it did. I just loved seeing the development of these characters. I really liked seeing Alex and Ren, their relationship / friendship go from basically like hating each other at the start of this retreat, and then just like seeing how it develops over the course of the book. And there were some other girls on the retreat that I really liked following. Another one was Poppy. I really liked her as a character, and I can't remember the other character that I really liked, but yeah, like I've said a million times, I just had so much fun with this book, and it's another one that I would love to revisit. Julia Bartz is definitely an author that I'll read more from. I'm shocked that this was a debut. It was so good. So there you have The Writing Retreat. Last up, my best book of the year. This is kind of funny because if you listen to our podcast, which if you don't, you should, it's linked down below. We just did a worst books of 2023 episode, which is something that you will not hear us talk about on YouTube. That's a video we never do, either of us, and we just kind of did a podcast episode. It was one of like the most fun episodes we've had or done, like recording wise. Like we just had a blast doing it together. This book might have landed on someone's worst books of the year, and it's my favorite book of the year, and that is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This is the most fun that I had reading a book this year, was my journey reading this book. Honestly, I wasn't even sure that I was like gonna read it. Obviously, this was definitely a cover buy at the time of getting it, because I just think the cover is really cool. I didn't really know much going into it, but I am so glad that I read this book. This is a book that I have recommended to several people online, also on the podcast, and also in real life. There are a lot of people at my work who have gotten to read this book and have really, really enjoyed it. And I can't wait for the sequel. The sequel comes out in a couple weeks it comes out in January. I'm not totally sure when this video is going to go up, but this book was so much fun. You're basically following this family who has all killed someone. This book is told in different parts. Like we have like the sister-in-law and the brother, my stepsister, my father, my mother, all that. And you're kind of hearing or reading their journey with killing someone. And basically this whole family is reuniting at this like resort because one of their brothers or son is being released from prison. And so they're all getting together. This family is not super close. And so already you kind of have those dynamics going into the book. And our main guy is Ernie. He's the narrator of this book. And his whole shtick is that he wants to be a reliable narrator, which is what worked for me. But I understand why it wouldn't work for other people, which is why it didn't work for Zach, because he just hated being told like everything that's going to happen. Honestly, I kind of forgot when stuff was going to happen at the beginning of the book when Ernie kind of like lays it out for you. But so basically this whole family, like I said, is reuniting. There's also a death that happens at the resort while they're all there. So there's that mystery element going on in the book too. And I just like loved reading all these characters. I loved seeing all of their dynamics with each other. I really liked Ernie as a narrator, like I said, and I cannot wait for the sequel to come out. I will be getting it on release day, reading it probably on release day, and it is by far my most anticipated book of 2024, number one, and I can't wait to get to it. So my favorite / best book of 2023 is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. If you have not read this, read it and thank me later. With that, those are my top 10-ish favorite books of the year. Definitely my top 5. Well, this is my 10 favorite books of the year. 5 of them are ranked, 5 of them are not. But you know what? I finally got to film this video and I'm excited about that. Let me know, like I said, your best book of the year, because I would love to know. If you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts and check out the description box because I will have all of these books linked down there. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I would really love to have you. With that, I will just see you in my next video. Bye!